All righty. Go right ahead.
Welcome, everyone, to Lesson 6 of How to Be Your Own Genie. This is Level 2, Lesson 6, Level 2. So I trust that everyone is doing well, and I'll remind you to do your forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and forgiving others exercises. Your I love you recording, you should be listening to that every day. And also activating your Merkaba every day until it's permanent. And even after it's permanent, you're going to want to ask your higher self if it is appropriate to continue with that or not. And to continue reading books and listening to audios. Listening to audios would be listening to me on YouTube or listening to the audios that I provide from Jin. Either one of those are great, or all of them. The reason why is it is important to have this knowledge at your mental fingertips. Knowledge is power only if it's used. If you don't know within your being, like you can just answer something verbatim instantly, then you don't really know it. And to know and not to do is not to know. So knowing it is just part of it. You actually have to put it into practice for you to really know it. Remember that saying that it is not what you learn, but what you remember that gives you power. So how do you remember? Well, part of it is using the system. So you're reading books, listening to audios, you're going to events, you're practicing recognition with your friends, with your peers. Another way is spaced repetition, which means that you're repeating it over and over again, and you leave a small space of time in between. There's this great company called Pimsleur, and it was started by a man named Pimsleur. That's why they call it that. And he does language courses. So, for example, if you are an English speaker, you could buy a Spanish course. And I believe that they have different levels, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of Spanish. And you could take their course, and it's like literally after 30 minutes of this audio, you will be speaking Spanish. Now, you're only going to know a few sentences, but it is amazing the way that they do it, and they use spaced repetition. So they teach you exactly the way that you learn when you're at home. And so there's not a lot of reading until later. So you learn how to read Spanish later, but really you're going to learn it just from speaking it. And they get you to formulate your own sentences. So it's sort of like, you know how when you're in school and you learned a vocabulary word, the teacher would give you the meaning of the word and you would learn what it meant. But then the teacher would ask you, okay, well, use it in a sentence. And you'd have to actually come up with your own sentence and then put the word in the sentence. And then the teacher would say, okay, well, do it again. Make another sentence and use it again. And then you would say another sentence, and then the teacher would say, well, make another sentence. So you would have to really know what the word meant, and that would teach it to you really well. So spaced repetition is another way that you can get this knowledge at your mental fingertips. The third way is to teach it. And how do you teach it? Well, in the beginning, you're not going to teach it to a giant class or a big auditorium of people. What you're going to do is teach it to yourself. So you can pretend that there is an audience, but really you're just alone in your bedroom, okay? And you're going to pretend that there's an audience. You're going to teach this class. I could even argue that, I could practice this, what I'm doing right now, uh, before earlier today, and then now I'm doing it in real life. So there's a point where you're going to not do it just with yourself, but you're going to actually get with other people and practice it. But you should get with peers that are learning the same material. So think of it like people who are in your class. If you're in grade 11, all right, get your peers who are also in grade 11, and they're going to be learning the same material, and you could go back and forth. They can teach you, and then you switch. You could teach them. So you're student teacher, and you switch student teacher. You can also have a round table, and you teach it to people. You have a discussion with somebody, and you mull it over in your discussion. One time, Kevin was doing this with one of his peers, Kevin Trudeau, and he was talking about how you don't actually have to be successful all of the time. You don't have to be on 100% of the time. You really only have to be on 51% of the time. At least that's what his peers said to him. You only have to be right 51% of the time. You don't have to be right 100%. And Kevin said, no, actually, that's wrong. And his friend said, well, what do you mean? Kevin said, you only have to be right once. There's an old story, it's kind of a legend now, but it is actually true, that Thomas Edison was trying to invent the light bulb, and he wasn't coming up with much success. He would try and they would fail. He'd try and fail. And the number of times he tried, I think, is probably incorrect. But the way that we say it now is 10,000 times. So let's just imagine that he failed 10,000 times, whether that number is accurate or not. But after 10,000, he succeeded. Well, now we have the light bulb. You only have to be right once. So he failed 10,000 times. But when somebody asked him, well, how did that make you feel when you failed 10,000 times? And Thomas Edison said, well, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I successfully found 10,000 ways it would not work, which led him to the success. You see, you have to fail in order to succeed. That is part of the success. So Thomas Edison did not look at his failures as such. He looked at them as successful attempts that resulted in not making a light bulb, okay, which led him to the successful one. So he figured out, he kept burning out the filament, and he couldn't figure out, he tried all kinds of different ways so that the filament would not burn and just be consumed. And then he came up with the idea that if he produced a vacuum without oxygen, it would not burn up, which was correct. So he created the bulb of glass around the filament, and then took all the oxygen out of it, and that's how he succeeded. But he needed to learn all of the different ways it would not work for him to finally get the successful way. And now we have all kinds of different light bulbs. We have LEDs, we have all kinds of different light bulbs. The point is that failure is necessary for success because it teaches you what not to do. I mean, how many kids do you know, their babies are crawling around and they go to take their first step and they just start running? I've never seen that happen once. Babies always fall. That's the way it works. When you learn to ride a bike, do you just ride your bike? No, you fall down. That's the way it works. You have to learn balance. You have to learn the proper speed that you require to have that bike be balanced. And in order to do that, you have to fall down. It's the way it works. A baby doesn't fall down after taking the first step, start crying, and then never gets up again. The baby just gets up. So that is the difference between success and failure long term, is are you going to get back up? It has no relevance whether you fall down. What is relevant is, do you get back up and take another step? Or when you fall down, do you stay on the ground and cry? Okay. Do you just cry and that's it? And you give up? Or do you get back up and take another step? That is the difference between success and failure long term, is do you get back up? So we want this at our mental fingertips. So you can ask questions, figure out the answer. You can talk it over with a peer. You could say it in many different ways, articulate it in many different stories. What you're going to go through is a set of stages called think, emote, look, create, know. Now, what this means is, have you ever met somebody that you haven't seen in like 10 years? Okay, you meet them at the grocery store or something, and you go, hey, hi, how's it going? And you can't remember their name. You're racking your brain. You're talking to them, and as you're talking to them, you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot this person's name. Well, you're in the think stage, and your brain is working overdrive. Think of their name. You know, you're like Winnie the Pooh. Think. And you can't get out of that think stage unless you emote. So the first thing is you think, and your mental file clerk is running through your brain trying to find all the files. But if you go through the emote stage, the emotion of it, then that's going to cause you to look for the file. But if you create the file, or if you have already created the file, then you will know what is in the file. So that's the difference between short-term memory and long-term memory. To explain it a better way, does anybody know the game Concentration? It used to be a popular game show. That was like back in probably the 80s.
Yes.
Yes, and there was pictures or pictograms, and you had to figure out what the sentence was based on pictures. So like, for example, it would show the image of an eye, and that stood for I, as in, myself, me, right? And then, they would have a picture of a soup can, and that was for can, like I can, right? So they would have different sentences made out of pictures, and you had to figure out what the sentence was. Well, when they would first reveal this pictogram, everybody was like squinting at it, trying to figure out, what is this sentence, right? But there's only one person that didn't have to question and wonder what the sentence was. Do you know who that person was?
No.
That would be whoever created the puzzle in the first place. I mean, whenever you have a puzzle, there's really only one person that doesn't have to wonder how to solve the puzzle, because that's the person that created it in the first place. So if you create a file in your mind, you created it, so you know what is already in it. Another example is there was an incident at work many years ago where someone got injured just slightly. They got like a boo-boo, and they were doing this investigation, and safety people are always so silly. But anyway, so we have something called a start card or the beginning of a toolbox meeting card. And we write down all of the hazards of our job. and then we write down the different controls that we're going to use to mitigate the hazards. And so this guy gets injured basically because he was being stupid and he didn't follow the mitigations that we had created. But the safety people were asking me, well, when you arrived at this problem, did you look at your start card? Did you consult your start card to see what to do? And I didn't want to be rude, but I kind of looked at them and laughed a little bit. And, with a smirk on my face, I was like, well, no, because I wrote the start card. So why would I need to consult my start card in order to know how to handle the situation? And they, of course, looked so puzzled because they can't figure anything out. And and I reiterated what I just said. I said, look, I wrote the start card. I created it. So everything written on that card came from my brain, yes? And they're like, well, yeah. So why would I need to consult it? All of it is already in my brain. And they kind of looked at me like, well, yeah, okay, fine. But I created that card. So I'm not going to have to read the card to figure out what I'm going to do next. I already know because it's in my brain. And that's the point of having something at your mental fingertips, is you don't have to waste time consulting anything. You don't have to read a book to figure out what to do next. You're not going to have to take time and, I'll answer you after I look into it. You're not going to have to do that because it'll be instantly there. That is going to assure your success exponentially compared with somebody that doesn't already know it that instantly. I hope I'm making sense there.
You are. I understand what you're saying.
Okay. All right. So if you have something right there at the tip of your tongue, it is way better than somebody that goes, oh, I'll have to find out. Let me look into that. And then, half a day later, they get back to you, or maybe not at all. We're going to go over some level 1 concepts. One of the main concepts in level 1, I hope that everybody caught, was that you can have, be, or do anything that you want. Anything that you put your mind to. As long as you believe that you can achieve it, then you will achieve it. One of the ways that is really good at making this happen is knowing the score. So that is another main concept of level 1. Knowing the score, so making something quantifiable so you know what the objective is. Now, if you're already hyper aware of what the objective is, then you're going to go for the next concept, which is feel good now. Feeling good is essential in order to be, do, or have anything that you want. Part of feeling good now is having self-awareness. Having self-awareness is all-encompassing. Like, for example, how do I feel right now? Where am I right now? What is the state of affairs right now? Also being aware of what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And if you figure out what your weaknesses are, work on your weaknesses. There's a lot of very successful people that had certain weaknesses and they became aware of these weaknesses. And practicing every day, working on them to strengthen those areas. Now, those aspects of business or life are their strengths because they work so hard on them. So having self-awareness, knowing how you feel is very important. That's your gauge when you are starting a new business, starting a new life where you are consciously creating your life. if you do not feel good now, the goal is to feel better, because you can't go from feeling crummy to being blissfully happy instantly. It's not going to be the case at all. You got to be realistic here. If you feel horrible, then your goal is just to feel a little bit better and understand the emotional scale. I mean, you could go from, there's being suicidal, and then you go up a notch to depression, and then you go up a notch to being sad, and then angry, and then just feeling, mildly unpleasant and dissatisfaction. And then you're going to head up to states where, this isn't too bad, I'm doing all right, all the way up to feeling blissfully happy. So if you understand that there is a scale of emotion, locate where you are on that scale and just try to go up one notch. Don't try to go up to being bliss when you're not feeling bliss at all. But understand that all negative emotion is focusing on what you don't want. That's what happens. So any degree of negative emotion is when you are looking at your radar screen and you don't see anything positive. You don't see a way out of the hole that you're in. Focusing on what you don't want is negative goal setting. There's a story about Kevin. When he was a kid, he would go to this newspaper stand because his mom would give him a quarter to get a newspaper. And the guy selling newspapers was just a bully. He was so mean. And, Kevin's a little kid, so there's all these adults around there buying papers and magazines. And he could never really push his way to the front so that he could get the guy's attention and get a newspaper. But his mom told him to get a newspaper, so he had to do it. And he always hated it because the guy was just so darn mean. And then he was going to these Amway meetings where they would talk about success and how to feel good now, and they would talk about all these positivity things. And he realized that when you're dealing with people, you can either react or you can respond. So he decided to respond instead of react to this guy. And he realized that, the newspaper guy, he's probably mean because, well, he's an adult, he's getting older, and all he does is just stand there all day selling newspapers. It's a pretty crappy life. So Kevin thought, well, this guy's probably just being mean because he's miserable. Well, I'm not going to be him. I'm going to be happy when I'm an adult. I'm going to be successful. I'm not going to be selling newspapers. So he would walk up to this guy with this new attitude, with a big smile on his face, thinking, you're a loser and I'm not going to be you. So the guy would say, what do you want? And Kevin would just react, I want a newspaper, with a big smile on his face, because he knew that that was not going to be him. He was making a conscious choice that he was, first of all, not going to react to the meanness. He was instead going to just respond. And number two, he realized that he had control 100% over his destiny. He's not going to be this loser of a guy selling newspapers. Not that that's a bad thing, but some people, maybe that's what they want to do in life, but not Kevin. It's important to play the what if game. So if somebody's, rushing in traffic and they're behind you, and then all of a sudden they pass and they cut you off. Well, you can play the what if game. Instead of getting mad, well, what if his wife has just gone into labor and he's got to hurry to the hospital? What if he's late for work and his boss says he's going to fire him if he doesn't show up on time this last time? He's rushing away to get to work so he doesn't get fired. There's all kinds of different what if scenarios that really could exist. So if somebody is mean to you, or somebody cuts you off in traffic, or just does something really insensitive, just play the winning and compassionate towards people. Now, why do you think being compassionate and understanding would actually benefit you?
Well, there's always karma.
True. Yeah, definitely. Another thing is when you're throwing emotion, no matter what kind of emotion it is, at something, it's sort of like a mirror that will reflect it back to you. So if you're trying to get revenge on somebody, it really just makes you bitter and revengeful. If you're throwing positivity towards somebody, it has the added effect that it comes back to you as well. So I guess you could call that karma. I just call it the mirror effect. Another thing too is I always try and look at somebody who has come into my life as a teacher. So I've just met this person and I'm having a negative experience, let's say, with this person. They are reacting to something, they're a little bit different. The conversation is not going the way that I thought it would go, and they're reacting to something that I said. Whatever it is, I look at it like this person is here to teach me something. This person is a mirror of something that I am reflecting, and they're showing me a part of myself that I maybe need to work on. So I'm going to thank this person, maybe not directly, but I'm going to thank this person in my mind for coming into my life and showing me an issue that I have to work on in myself. Now, also, feeling good now can be difficult depending on the situation we're in. A lot of times I get the response, well, it's easy for you to say, you always have so much luck. You could feel good now because you've got that nice car, you've got, no kids screaming at you all night, you've got this nice house that you live in, it's peaceful, it's everything is just easy for you. You have lots of money, no problem. Well, maybe that's the way it is now. And I don't have a charmed life by any means, but I definitely have a good life. But it wasn't always that way. And no matter what situation I'm in, like if I'm in a situation at work, there's a lot of difficult, tough situations at work doing pipe fitting. And I'm telling you, I look at it like it's the best time of my life. I really enjoy it. Or could you imagine, going camping and you're fishing on a boat and then it starts to rain, right? And there's thunder, lightning, and you're on this boat, you're soaking wet, it's dreary out, and you're fishing while you're camping. Well, you're sleeping on dirt at night, and now you're wet and you're cold. You're out in the lake, there's no food, there's no water, you're out of beer, okay? A lot of people would consider that to be heaven. So whether you're at the Ritz-Carlton or you're fishing and it starts to rain and there's no food or water on the boat, it doesn't matter. Both situations are great. In fact, there's really no positive or negative in any situation. It's just different. It's just a different situation. Now, certainly, once you learn these techniques really well, you're going to be consciously creating your life. So you will find that more and more the situations are going to be more pleasurable. You're going to feel more grateful for the situations that you encounter. But for sure, a situation is just a situation. It's not positive or negative. It's only what you decide it's going to be, really. There's a story about Kevin going to the ashram. In fact, I think in Know the Score, he talks about the ashram. So if you were wondering, what was up with that? Well, there's this place in California, in Calabasas, and it's run by two Swedish women. There's 13 people that stay there. There's, I think, 3 bathrooms in the whole house, and it's in the mountains. So you do about 70 miles of hiking. You stay there for about a week, and there's no phones, no phone service. There's no TV or radio or anything like that. So you basically go there to have kind of a minimalistic type of lifestyle for a while. And Kevin had never been there. So for the first time, you know, he wanted to go there, and he was so excited to go there because a friend told him about it. And he said, I want to stay for 2 weeks. So he pays for 2 weeks up front. And Anne Marie, the Swedish lady, she says, we don't allow that. You can't stay for 2 weeks. It's just 1 week. And he goes, no problem. Well, one of the guys there was Simon Le Bon, who sings for Duran Duran. Okay, this was back in probably the 80s or something. And, you know, there was a girl there that was really short. She was about 250 pounds. Okay. There was an older couple friends that were there, a guy and a gal, and they were in their 60s, and they were there. So he's looking at all these other people that are in the house, and he was like, Anne Marie, I can totally do the hikes. I mean, and he's thinking to himself, you know, Simon Le Bon, he's a drug addict. Okay, I could definitely do the hikes if he could do the hikes. And that short, fat girl, I mean, obviously, you know, if she could do it, I could do it. And there's like a couple people in their 60s, for crying out loud. I could definitely do the hikes. I'm going to be ahead of everybody. Well, Anne Marie says, you're going to quit after day 1, and I'm not going to give you any of your money back. And Kevin said, no, definitely not. So he goes up to his room, and you have to share a room with somebody you don't know. And so he goes up to his room with his partner, meets this partner of his that he's going to spend the next couple weeks with, or next week with. And then the next day he gets up, and they get up for an hour and a half of Nazi yoga. Okay. So it's not like, oh, you're going to breathe and feel at one with life and la la la. No, it's stretch, touch the floor, you stretch and stretch more. That was Nazi yoga. Okay, so he does that for an hour and a half, and that was before breakfast. Okay, so he gets to get up early for that, and he's exhausted before breakfast. You know, his muscles are quivering, and he's shaking from the Nazi yoga because, I mean, at the time he was overweight, and he could barely reach his knees when he would, you know, stretch down. He was supposed to touch his toes and actually reach down with the palm of his hand to touch the floor, but he could only get to his knees. So Anne Marie jumps on his back and is trying to push him down more onto the floor. And she says, you quit yet? And jumps on his back, pushing him down. And he's saying, no, Anne Marie, I'm going to stick through this. This is okay. This is fun. And so then he gets, for breakfast, he gets either half a grapefruit or half a glass of grapefruit juice. Well, he says, Anne Marie, I don't particularly like grapefruit. And Anne Marie says, well, then you'll get nothing else. He says, is that really all that there is for breakfast? And he's looking around, and everybody nods. Yep, that's all you get for breakfast. So he says, can I please have the grapefruit juice? And then a lady says, yeah, but, you know, they feed you on the trail. So he goes, oh, okay. All right. So you don't get a big breakfast because, you know, they don't want to have you get sick on the trail when you're doing the hike. So, okay, that's all right. So he has his grapefruit juice and then gets ready for the hike. Well, he goes on this hike and he thinks, oh, yeah, I'm going to be acing this course. No. He is dead last. Everybody is miles ahead of him. And on the trail, there's a guy named Geo, and Geo is an ex-Marine drill sergeant. So he's also a yoga instructor. So he's an ex-drill sergeant that can now wrap his legs around his head in yoga class. And so it's quite the combination. And Geo is on the trail. He's on the top of the mountain, and he says, hey, Trudeau, you better get up here. I got your snack. And Kevin looks up, and he sees him holding up an apple, and he's going, what? An apple? That's it? Just one apple? Are you kidding me? Well, Geo then starts eating the apple. So he's going, oh my gosh, he's eating my snack. So he runs up the mountain to get this apple from me. He's thinking, I know what I'm going to do with this apple when I get it. But he ends up getting one sliver left. Geo cuts off a sliver and just hands it to him. All he had to do, he was so hungry, all he could do was just eat the apple sliver that was given to him. And that's all he had. Well, he's dead last behind everybody who was so late getting back that everybody had already had lunch. Well, lunch consisted of a small bowl of salad greens with 2 almonds and no dressing. So he eats this salad, or half a salad, I guess. And Anne-Marie, comes in with a big smile on her face and says, "You quit yet?" And Kevin said, "No way, this is so much fun." Because he was thinking in his mind, I can't quit because this darn Anne-Marie said at the beginning that I was going to quit, and I can't quit now. Well, come the 3rd day, he's on the trail. He got used to the routine. He gets his half a glass of grapefruit juice, and he does his Nazi yoga and everything in the morning, and then he does the trail. Well, he didn't bring any good clothes for hiking because he was told that they provide clothes if you don't have any. So he had to wear whatever they had. So they gave him this cotton outfit that was red with ashram on the side of it, and the back had this angel with devil horns, which is the mascot of the ashram. So he's wearing this stupid outfit, and then on the trail it starts to rain. Well, there's a lot of dust and dirt on the road, and you could guess what happened. It was a drizzle in the beginning, and then it turned into this torrential downpour. So he's slipping and sliding in the mud, and he's falling down. He's wearing this stupid outfit and it was made out of cotton. So now he is cold and wet, covered in mud, slipping and sliding. It's dreary out. You know what? He was having the best time of his life because he was thinking about that one moment on the last day where he could just flip the bird to Anne-Marie and say, "I didn't quit, did I?" So he was focusing on that one moment. And even though the circumstances seemed to be negative, because he was focused on that one goal of sticking it to Anne-Marie, he got through it, and he was having the best time of his life. And that's really what it's like. Sometimes we go through some really negative experiences, but in the end, if you're focused on your goal, it doesn't matter. It's all good. You will feel really, really good if you're focused on your goal. Now, another way to get this knowledge at your mental fingertips is engaging in the training, actually doing it, putting into practice, because it takes everything out of the short-term memory and it puts it into the long-term memory, which is really fast to access. Situations aren't bad or good, they're just different. So when you're engaging in the training, that is a part of it. It's important to remember that because it'll help you to engage. I remember Kevin would short us chairs during training events. And he was doing that on purpose. We didn't know this at the time, but he was doing it on purpose to put us into a state of anger, to put us into a state of, well, what do I do when things don't go my way? Or just putting us in a state of always being grateful no matter what the situation. So if we didn't have a chair to sit in, how would we react? And we eventually started to react like, oh, well, big deal. There's no chair to sit in. I'll just stand. So in the beginning, we were very angry when there was no chairs for certain people to sit in. But at the end of the training, we realized that this was just another situation. It didn't really matter. Sometimes he would grill us for hours and hours. We didn't have food or water. Now, of course, we could have left the room and gone to a restaurant or something, but none of us wanted to miss any of the training, right? So we would stay for hours and hours. Sometimes he would do it on purpose just because you go into a totally different state when you have gone without sleep for a while. And the brain will start to create different chemicals and things like that. So sometimes he would do it just because he was trying to mentally exhaust us and put us into a different brainwave state where we're, a little bit catatonic, a little bit more hypnotizable. But other times he was doing it because he wanted us to go without food and water for a little bit so that we would experience all sorts of different negative experiences and learn how to deal with that. Because you're going to go through some hard times when you are first starting a business. There are going to be situations that arise that you didn't anticipate, and you're going to have to think on your feet. Now, another thing that is interesting is that you're going to find your chief aim will change as you go. First of all, you're a different person with every moment. When you're engaging in the training, you're going to change who you are. And we've talked about this a bit. So engaging in a new unit of time, your chief aim may change because you are changing and your goals and dreams are changing. But another thing is you might think that you want something, but then as you start to eventually get what your chief aim is, you start to achieve, you realize, hey, that's not really what I want. What I want for real is this. So you start to clarify exactly what it is that you want. And this is a very powerful experience. So if you've changed your chief aim and you're kind of worried, like in the beginning, I talked about there was this graph that I drew by hand, and you start at 1, and then you go to 2, and then you go to 1.5, and you're getting closer to 5. You have to wait until you get to 5 before you actually get your chief aim. And then you pick another chief aim, you start again. Well, a lot of people quit when they get to about 2. Instead of going all the way to 5, they quit and then they start over with a new dream. Well, then you never accomplish anything. So some people feel guilty when they change their chief aim. So let me talk about that for a little bit. If you're changing your chief aim constantly because you see a new opportunity or a friend comes up to you and, oh, I got this great business opportunity. It's a new MLM. And you keep hopping MLMs, okay? That is not ideal because you're starting at 1 and then you go to 2, then you go to 1.5 and then you quit. Well, then you got to start over at 1 again, right? But if you are on your way to your chief aim and you're going through the motions all the way to 5, but about halfway through, you realize, no, you know what? I thought my chief aim was this, but now I realize that no, my chief aim is really this. And I don't want that old chief aim anymore. I want this new clarified chief aim. That is okay because you've just decided to change your focus. You've changed your dream. But if you're constantly hopping opportunities just to make money, like, oh, I'm going to do Amway this week, and next week I'm going to do Shackley, and next week I'm going to do Mona V. And, if you're doing that constantly, I recommend that you just pick one business and focus on that. Get to 5, get your chief aim, and then pick a new chief aim. Otherwise, you're just going to be starting over at square one every time, and you're never going to get anywhere. But yeah, definitely as you change, you're going to be honing in on your chief aim and refocusing what you're really wanting, what you actually want. And sometimes that only happens through doing this process of picking your chief aim and then, getting your mind movie going. And after a while, you start to achieve some of it and you go, hey, this is not what I really wanted. I wanted this instead. And I wasn't as clear as I should have been. That's okay. Oh, I have to just get my computer going here for a second, just a minute. Okay, sorry about that. So starting over is not ideal unless you've decided that you really do not want your old chief aim. So is everybody good to go to continue on, or should I stop the recording now?
No, go ahead as long as you want, always.
Okay, all right. An interesting thing is you're going to find that you are going to, even though you're already spectacular, you're going to become an even more spectacular person. People are going to want to spend time with you and hang out with you more as you do this training. You're going to have more of a magnetic personality. Now, this is why. Okay, as you are focusing on your chief aim and achieving it and going through that whole process, when you decide, I want this, I want to achieve this, I want to become this, I want to have this, you actually make that a part of your vibration. When you have a mind movie, that becomes part of your vibration, which means it becomes a part of you. You're creating something. And as you are becoming this thing and you actually achieve it, the more that you achieve, and it could be just little achievements, it doesn't have to be a big thing. The more that you achieve what your goal is, the more positive and enigmatic you will become, because you'll be feeling good as you're achieving it as well. And this will become who you are. That's why when you're imagining what you want and you're creating, you're in the process of creating, you feel good because it's actually a part of you. So that makes you feel good. But when you imagine not getting it, or you imagine something you don't want, that's why you feel crummy, because if you have a chief aim and then you think about not getting it, it's a part of you. So that means that part of you is not going to be real anymore. And in your mind, it is real. So that makes you feel crummy when you think of not getting it. That is why feeling good now is such an important part of this process, because you are creating yourself. You are becoming this success magnet of sorts. Feeling good now is so important that you will probably recall hearing about certain societies conducting sex magic rituals, or rituals that involved sex, and people would actually, gather in a circle, and in the center of the circle there would be this ritual going on. Well, I think we can all agree that sex is very pleasurable. So they would use that energy to create particle flow towards certain goals. And they would have like this group goal and use the sex energy to create. It's sort of like, if you think of the sun, the sun is blazing down in all directions. It's just this giant ball of fire. And in all directions, it is sending energy. But if you were to take a magnifying glass on a sunny day and focus that energy on some type of fuel source, like a bunch of leaves or some crumpled up paper, you could actually start a fire just by focusing that sun energy. You are going to become that focused energy starting a fire. So you're going to have particle flow in a focused manner on your dream. If you think of it in another way, when you have that mind movie, you are essentially planting a seed. And every time you run that mind movie, it is like putting the sun's energy and some water on that seed to get it to finally germinate. Particle flow is very important. Now, if you do not feel good now, but instead you feel a negative emotion, what are you supposed to do?
Understand it's where you don't want to be.
Yes, and you're going to use your anger or otherwise negative emotion and do what?
Come on, Dinglefish, answer.
It's going to make you focus. So first of all, you're not feeling very good. So you realize what you don't want. You clarify what you don't want, which means that you figure out exactly what you do want. And then you're going to turn your back on what you don't want, focus on what you do want, and you're going to feel good. So when you are following your bliss or following your feel good now gauge, sometimes it's difficult to know what feeling good really is, what your gut feeling really is. So one method to use is just go to a buffet. Or you can actually have like a mental buffet. You don't even have to go to a buffet physically. But just think of a food that you hate, okay? And ask yourself, okay, how do I feel about this food? And that is your gut feeling towards something that doesn't feel good. Now, think of your favorite food. And that is your positive feeling, your gut feeling about something. It is important to consult your gut or your intuition when it comes to doing this whole process, because what you think is not always going to be correct. We talked about programs and how the elite class will create programs, but it only affects how you think. It can't actually affect anything to do with your feelings. So we consult our feelings. And if you have a relationship with your higher self, you can ask your higher self as well. When you follow your gut, when you follow your intuition, that good feeling that you're getting, the outcome is irrelevant. I'm going to say that again. It doesn't matter what happens when you follow your intuition, that good feeling. The outcome is irrelevant. There is no such thing as a wrong decision. If you decide to do something and it is quote unquote the wrong decision, what do you think would happen?
I'm not sure.
Well, if an opportunity comes my way and then I decide to act, and that is the wrong decision for me to do, well, something I don't want is going to be the result, correct?
All right.
And if it's something I don't want, then what am I going to do? So I get an opportunity, I decide either yes or no, I decide to act on that, and then I decided wrong. So I get something I don't want. What do you think I'm going to do with that?
Throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm going to learn from that, that is not what I want to be doing. Oh, I thought I was going the right way. I thought I was feeling good and trusting my gut. And then I fell off the cliff. Well, I guess that's not the right way to do things. Okay. So you're going to learn from that mistake and not do it again, which is a positive thing. But if you have an opportunity and you make the right decision, then what's going to happen?
Happiness, bliss.
Yeah, presumably, if you have an opportunity, you make the right decision, it's, you go to the pay window, and you make lots of money and you have success, right? Well, either outcome is positive. Either you make a mistake and you learn from that mistake and you never make that mistake again, and then you get success, just like Thomas Edison, or you hit the pay window the first time. But either way, it doesn't matter. The outcome is good. I mean, in the end, Thomas Edison really did invent the light bulb. So it doesn't matter how many times you make that mistake. You only have to be right once. This is going to save you hours of, not sleeping, wondering if you made the right decision or not. Okay. If you made the right decision, you're going to figure it out eventually. And if you made the wrong decision, same thing. You're going to figure it out based on how you feel. So if you're always going with your gut intuition, the outcome is irrelevant. You're always going to get positivity. That is something that a lot of people have trouble with who are, quote unquote, low income or even, middle income families, because they're raised with a certain attitude that life has to be a struggle and you have to work hard your whole life. And then, you get old and you have this pension, but your pension really doesn't cover all the costs. So you're just going to be poor when you're old and it's just going to be a hard life. Well, that's not true. The universe is there to bless you. All you have to do is just reach out and grab it. But because most people expect hardship and hard work and, life is a struggle and there's not much money to go around, that's what they get out of life. No matter what happens, the outcome is always going to be there to bless you, whether you learn from that or whether it is there to really give you abundance. In the end, you are going to succeed. But you have to get up, just like that child learning to walk. You fall down, you have to get back up. That is the only difference between success and failure. And just like there's no such thing as a wrong decision, there is no such thing as a once in a lifetime opportunity. When you do this training, you're going to realize that opportunities are going to come and come and come and come. And you know what? If your plate is full, you can pass them by. The reason why opportunities are going to keep coming your way is because you are creating them. Eventually, you will have to take one opportunity and work really hard at it in order to succeed. Okay? I mean, men are not just going to knock on your door with bags of money and drop them off at your feet. Okay? That's not how life works. You will have to work really hard for this. So eventually there will be an opportunity that comes your way. You're going to have to take it and grab that opportunity and then work at it in order to hit the pay window. But there are going to be opportunities galore. You don't have to worry about, oh, this opportunity is coming my way, but I don't know if I should take it. You don't have to start biting your nails. You don't have to get a hernia. Okay. You don't have to have a heart attack because you're not sure if this is the right opportunity for you. You simply go with your gut. And like I said earlier, if you are starting at the beginning, you start at 1, then you go to 2, then you go to 1.5, and you're getting closer to 5, don't quit and start with a new opportunity. Stick with the opportunity that you're on, get to 5, get that success, and then you can do a new opportunity. Why? Because new opportunities are going to be coming your way nonstop. You don't have to worry about, is this the right one? And, oh, I want to take advantage of it now, but it's kind of the wrong timing. And, oh, I don't know. No, you're going to be creating more and more opportunities. So you don't have to worry. The universe is here to bless you. Life isn't hard. It's not a struggle, or it doesn't have to be. So it's important to understand that going with your gut, finding your bliss, going with your peace, that is where it's at always. That is your gauge. That tells you if you're going the right way. Some people are very religious and they pray and they get that type of insight through prayer and reading the Bible. Otherwise, I would just say follow your gut. Okay. Either way, it's the same thing. Where do you feel peace? Where do you get the most bliss? That is where you're going to find the vibration is most in sync with who you are and who you are becoming. And with that, that is going to be the end of today's lesson, unless there are any comments, questions, or observations.
No, I'm just down here arguing with Dinglefish because she's not ready to stop blaming everyone else yet.
Oh, don't throw her under the bus now. Come on.
And of course, she can't jump on because she has to go.
And she's probably not able to talk because she's got family and stuff there, and she doesn't want to be talking on here, right? So she can't defend herself.
No, she, of course, as soon as I say so, she has to go. But that's...
You know what, Dinklefish? I believe that you can do this. Whatever your goal is, I'm not even sure what it is. I believe in you, and I believe that you can do it.
I do too. You just need to take personal responsibility.
Yes, that's right. I mean, we were all raised within a family, and some families are better than others, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately us that's going to make everything work. So you have to just take the bull by the horns where you are right now, wherever that is, and start taking responsibility right here and right now. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday or who's to blame yesterday. You're the one today.
Boom. Exactly. You got this.
And really, I don't know of one person who doesn't have a past where there was like major struggles. I mean, some people I look at and I go, oh, they live a charmed life and they've got everything they want. But, when you get to know a person, you start to realize like, wow, that person really had a lot of struggles growing up. And I can't believe how well they're doing. And wow, that's great.
I know. I mean, you have your moneyed class, but I mean, there's so many people that have a lot of money that busted their ass and damn near killed themselves on the way up.
Right. Or I know a lot of people that have money, but they don't really have that great of a life, because of whatever reason. It's just, it has nothing to do with feeling bliss.
Right. And the funniest thing was I knew this guy through political campaigning because he donated to candidates who owned a chain of banks in central Pennsylvania. And he was a big, big fat guy. I mean, not like, a little bit overweight, but a big fat guy. And he decided he's buying himself one of those high-end Lamborghinis. And I'm telling you, I laughed so hard I cried trying to watch this guy get out of it.
Aw, yeah. Well, he was probably experiencing a kind of a midlife crisis.
I don't know. And when he come in to this, I was just, dude, you can get a high-end car that's a little bit easier for you to get in and out of.
Yeah, wow. And I think about my car because it's quite low to the ground. I mean, I don't struggle to get out of it or anything, but yeah, I can just imagine somebody struggling, like a little bit older with their knees and stuff to get down.
Oh, this dude was probably about 350, 400 pounds, maybe 5'8". I don't even know how he got into it, how he didn't press against the steering wheel. I see you're not impressing anyone with that car.
Yeah, I guess.